We live in a world that constantly pushes the idea that if you want someone to desire you, you have to be everywhere, all the time, that you need to be the first to text, the last to say goodnight, the one who never says no to time together. But the truth is, the more available something is, the less we value it. It's not about being cold or playing hard to get, it's about understanding how human nature works. We are wired to chase, to seek, to value what we have to earn just a little. Think about the last time you became obsessed with something, a new show, a piece of art, a person. Chances are it wasn't something that dumped everything on you all at once. There was a hook, a little taste, a feeling that something special was happening, but not everything was revealed. That space, that moment of suspense, created curiosity. That curiosity turned into anticipation. That anticipation led to craving. Now take that same principle and apply it to your presence in someone's life. If you are always immediately available, replying to every message the moment it comes in, saying yes to every plan, giving more than you're receiving, you create a rhythm where your presence becomes expected rather than appreciated. When people expect you to always be there, they stop noticing your value. You become part of the background noise in their day rather than the highlight. Scarcity doesn't mean withholding affection or being emotionally distant. It means you recognize the value of your energy, your time, your conversation. You don't hand it out like free samples. You offer it intentionally, with meaning, and that difference, that self-respect, is what shifts the dynamic. Because people don't crave what feels guaranteed, they crave what feels earned. It's the same reason why we obsess over limited editions, why we line up for hours to get the newest drop, why the last piece of cake on the plate suddenly becomes the most desirable. Scarcity taps into the part of our brain that says, this won't last forever. Pay attention. You want to be that moment. You want to be that experience that makes someone stop scrolling, stop wandering, and tune in, because they don't know when they'll get to experience you again. But for that to work, you have to be doing something with your time. You have to be living, not just waiting. Waiting doesn't make you scarce, it makes you stagnant. You want your absence to be filled with life, your passions, your goals, your joy, your community. That way, when someone doesn't hear from you, it's not because you're trying to make them miss you, it's because you're actually doing things that matter to you. And that's attractive. When you live fully and deeply, and you're not always at someone's beck and call, they start to wonder what you're up to, they start to imagine your world, they become curious, and that curiosity is the seed of desire. It creates this sense of, I want to be part of that world, I want to be around whatever energy makes them so magnetic. The problem so many people face is this fear of losing someone if they don't constantly show up, so they keep giving. Even when it's not reciprocated, they keep showing up, even when it goes unnoticed. And they tell themselves that if they just keep giving more, maybe one day the other person will realize how special they are. But that's not how it works. You can't convince someone to value you by over-delivering. You can only show your value by demonstrating you know it already. When someone has to reach a little for your attention, when they realize they're not the sole focus of your world, that's when things shift. That's when respect starts to grow. They start to realize your time isn't free, your energy isn't guaranteed, and if they want to keep experiencing you, they have to show up for you. Not just passively enjoy your presence, but actually invest. And that investment, even if it's small at first, starts the emotional bond, because we care more about what we've had to work for. You're not being manipulative by being less available, you're being intentional. And it's not about pretending you don't care. It's about showing that you care about yourself, that you're not desperate to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself, you've chosen your standards, and only someone who respects those standards gets access to your time, to your space, to your heart. Think about some of the most confident, magnetic people you've ever met. They don't chase, they don't flood your inbox, they don't fill the silence with constant validation. They create space, and in that space, people lean in. That's the kind of energy you want to tap into. The kind that doesn't beg for love, but attracts it naturally by being grounded, fulfilled, and self-respecting. It's also important to note that being scarce doesn't mean being inconsistent. You don't want to disappear and reappear in a way that confuses people or plays with their emotions. Scarcity isn't chaos, it's clarity. It means that when you do show up, it matters. You're fully present, you give your best energy, you connect deeply, and then you go back to your life, not to punish them but to keep growing yourself. You want to be like the perfect song, not something people get tired of, but something they can't stop replaying. And the way to become that is not by flooding someone's senses, it's by knowing when to pull back, when to pause, when to let silence speak louder than words. When you understand that your presence has value, you stop trying to prove it. You become more comfortable letting others come to you, not because you don't care, but because you've realized the power in making someone choose you, not out of convenience, but out of desire. And that shift in dynamic changes everything. You stop fearing their distance, you stop panicking when they don't respond, because you know that your energy is magnetic, that your absence has weight, that you don't need to flood their world to be remembered. You just need to matter in the moments you're there, and then step back, knowing that if what you offered was real, they'll come looking for it again. When it comes to attraction, people tend to over-focus on external things, looks, gestures, words, status. But what truly captures someone's attention and keeps it isn't surface level, it's emotional impact. It's not just what you say or do, it's how you make someone feel. That's the real addiction. That's what stays with a person long after you leave the room. You can be the most beautiful person in the world, but if someone doesn't feel something around you, inspiration, challenge, excitement, peace, they're not going to crave you, because we don't get addicted to beauty. We get addicted to emotion. It's not logic that drives us to pick up the phone, to think about someone late at night, to wonder what they're doing. It's that emotional hit they gave us, that rush, that spark, that sense that something shifted inside of us when we were with them, and that's where your true power lies. Every interaction you have is an opportunity to create an emotional imprint. You don't need grand moments or dramatic gestures, you just need to connect. When you speak, speak with intention. Don't just fill the silence with generic words. Say something that makes a person stop and feel. Ask real questions. Share parts of yourself that go beyond the surface. Because when someone feels like they're being seen, when they feel like you get them, they drop their guard. And when that guard drops, emotion rushes in. The human brain is wired to remember moments of emotional intensity. Think about the strongest memories you have, the happiest, the most painful, the most exciting. Those moments stuck with you not because of the details, but because of how they made you feel. That's why two people can go on the same date, do the same things, have the same conversation, but only one of them leaves a mark, because one of them connected on a deeper level, one of them stirred something. So how do you do that? You become someone who feels things deeply and isn't afraid to express it. You laugh loudly, you speak passionately, you care about what matters to you and don't hide it. People are drawn to passion, not perfection. When you show real emotion, when you're moved by a song, or get excited about a goal, or share a lesson from pain, it gives others permission to do the same, and that vulnerability is where intimacy begins. That's where the craving starts. There's a huge difference between attention and connection. Anyone can get attention, post the right photo, say the right line, be charming, but real emotional connection, that's rare, and that's why it's valuable, because when someone experiences it, they feel different. You don't just make their day more entertaining, you make it more meaningful, you make them feel alive. And when someone associates that feeling with you, they'll want more of it. They'll seek you out, not because they're bored, but because they're hooked. And here's the key, it doesn't have to be heavy. You don't have to make someone cry or share your deepest trauma. Sometimes emotional impact comes from laughter, from being playful, from surprising them, from saying something they didn't expect, something honest, something bold, something a little daring. That unpredictability stirs emotion.
There's a very subtle yet powerful shift that happens in your relationships when you begin to truly own your worth. Most people go through life trying to earn attention, affection, approval, thinking that if they do everything right, say the perfect thing, offer enough, they'll finally be chosen. But the people who actually become magnetic, the ones others crave, admire, and respect, don't operate from that place. They don't beg to be picked. They know their value, and because they know it, they don't need to prove it. When you fully believe in your worth, your energy changes. You don't chase, not because of ego or pride, but because you understand that anything that's meant for you won't require you to abandon yourself to keep it. You begin to filter people not based on whether they like you, but whether you like how you feel around them. That's a completely different mindset from the one most people are stuck in. Confidence isn't loud, it's not about being the most talkative person in the room or showing off. Real confidence is quiet certainty. It's walking into a room with the inner knowing that you belong there. Not because someone else says you do, but because you've done the work to see yourself clearly. You've looked in the mirror and said, I know what I bring, I know what I deserve, and I will no longer settle for less. This level of self-respect is incredibly attractive. People feel it, they sense it in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you respond, especially when things don't go your way, when someone tests your boundaries and you calmly hold your ground without over-explaining. When someone pulls away and instead of chasing, you continue on with your life, knowing that your peace matters more than someone else's confusion. That's strength, that's self-worth in action. You don't become magnetic by being desperate to hold on. You become magnetic by showing that you're whole, with or without someone else's validation. That you're not trying to be completed, you're already complete. And anyone who comes into your life is there to add, not to fill a void. That's the difference between attracting from need and attracting from abundance. When you're in need, you cling. When you're in abundance, you choose. And that choice, that's power. When someone knows that you want them but don't need them, it creates a tension that's incredibly compelling. It makes them realize that if they don't rise to the level of how you treat yourself, they might lose you. Not because you're playing games, but because you're not willing to stay where you're not respected. But to live this truth, you have to really believe it. It's not enough to say you're valuable, you have to live it. That means the way you talk to yourself, the way you hold yourself accountable, the way you show up in the world. You don't keep people in your life who drain you just because you're afraid of being alone. You don't tolerate breadcrumbs of affection, hoping they'll someday turn into a feast. You don't twist yourself into someone you're not just to keep someone interested. You stop giving discounts on your worth, because you finally see it for what it is. Owning your worth doesn't mean you think you're better than others, it means you're not willing to shrink to make others comfortable. You know that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, being open doesn't mean being naive. Being available doesn't mean being on call for people who don't invest in you. And you start to draw a clear line between what feels good and what feels familiar. Because sometimes we confuse comfort with connection, and your worth won't let you stay in places that only feel safe but don't help you grow. You start building standards, not walls. You make it clear what you will and won't tolerate, not to intimidate but to inspire. Because when you treat yourself with respect, you invite others to rise up and meet you there. And the ones who can't or won't, they fall away, not because you pushed them, but because they couldn't exist in the energy of someone who finally stopped begging to be loved. And when you stand in that energy, everything shifts. You stop performing, you stop obsessing over replies, you stop overthinking every word, you start being more you. Not filtered, not edited, not dimmed down to make others feel secure. You begin to show up as your whole self, and that's what makes you unforgettable. Someone who knows their worth brings a sense of calm to every interaction. They're not thrown off by rejection because they know rejection doesn't define them. It redirects them. They're not shaken by someone else's opinion because their opinion of themselves is already rooted in truth. They don't see every loss as a personal failure, but as a necessary clearing for what's better to come. And that mindset is rare, it's valuable, it's magnetic. The people who crave your energy won't just be drawn to your beauty or charm, they'll be drawn to your certainty, your stability, your emotional maturity. They'll feel safe around you, not because you're trying to fix them, but because you've already worked on fixing you. And when someone feels that grounded energy, it becomes something they want to be around, not out of dependency, but out of inspiration. So every time you wonder if you should reach out again, even though they've been distant, ask yourself, would I do this if I truly believed in my value? Every time you feel the need to overgive, to prove yourself, to go the extra mile without any effort in return, pause and ask, is this honoring my worth or denying it? Because your worth isn't a negotiation, it's not something others decide for you. It's something you decide and then enforce with your actions, your boundaries, your choices. And when you start doing that consistently, the game changes. You stop being someone who waits to be chosen and start becoming someone people feel lucky to know. Because people don't just crave those who are attractive, they crave those who are anchored, those who stand tall in who they are, without apology, without neediness, without fear. That kind of self-belief doesn't just attract love, it sets the standard for it. And the moment you start living from that truth, the right people won't hesitate to meet you there. There's this idea floating around that if you want someone to fall for you, you have to be constantly present. You have to be in their messages first thing in the morning, commenting on everything, never missing a beat, always making sure they know you're there. But being constantly present isn't what makes you unforgettable. It's being intentionally present that creates the real impact. Because it's not about how often you're around, it's about how you show up when you are. If you're always available, always saying yes, always there at a moment's notice, your presence stops feeling special. It becomes expected, predictable, maybe even invisible. And that doesn't create craving, it creates complacency. People get used to the idea that you'll always be around, always accessible, always reachable, and that's when they start to overlook you. Not because they're bad people, but because human nature works that way. We stop appreciating what we never have to miss. Now think about the people you remember most, the ones who made a lasting impression on you. Were they the ones who were always in your face, constantly checking in, giving you more than you asked for? Probably. More likely, they were the ones who brought a certain energy when they were around. They weren't always there, but when they were, it meant something. They gave you their full attention, they listened, they connected, they made you feel something. Then they disappeared back into their life, and you were left wondering about them, missing them, wanting more. That's not an accident, that's intentional presence. Intentional presence means that when you show up, you're fully engaged. You're not distracted, not halfway in, not performing, you're there. You make eye contact, you ask meaningful questions, you make people feel seen, heard, and important. That's rare. In a world where everyone is multitasking, scrolling, half listening, the person who gives their full attention becomes unforgettable. And when you're unforgettable, people crave being around you again. But then you step back, not out of coldness, not out of game playing, but because you have your own life, your own dreams, your own routines, your own peace. You don't need constant validation from someone to feel complete. You're not waiting for their attention like it's oxygen, you're living, growing, enjoying your time alone. That balance, showing up with meaning and then stepping back with confidence, is what creates a powerful dynamic. Because it shows that your life doesn't revolve around them, you're adding to their world, not orbiting around it. What this does is create contrast. Contrast is what makes presence feel rich. Think about how good a moment of quiet feels after a long day of noise. Think about how exciting a surprise feels after a routine. Think about how refreshing it is to be with someone who's genuinely present when so many others are emotionally checked out. That contrast makes people feel your presence more deeply and your absence more strongly. It makes you stand out in their memory. Being intentional also means you don't give your energy to everyone all the time. You choose who gets access. Not out of ego, but out of self-respect. You protect your peace, you protect your time, and when you do decide to give someone your attention, they feel it. Because it's not coming from a place of obligation or insecurity, it's coming from a place of fullness. You're giving because you want to, not because you're trying to earn something. And that changes everything. Someone who's always around can start to feel like background noise, but someone who shows up with presence and then lives their own life in between, that's someone who leaves an imprint. You want people to feel the difference when you enter a space, to notice the energy shift. That doesn't happen by hovering or overextending. It happens by being intentional with your interactions, making them count, making them meaningful, and then allowing space. That space is so important. It gives the other person room to reflect, to miss you, to wonder, to initiate. And when someone starts to wonder about you, when they start to feel your absence, they start to invest more. They reach out, they become curious, they start to value your time, because they know it's not unlimited. That's how people develop emotional attachment, not just from how much they're given, but from how much they start giving back. The truth is, we don't value things that come too easily. We might like them, we might enjoy them for a while, but we don't crave them. Craving comes from connection, yes, but also from space, from the moments when something or someone isn't right there, and our mind starts to reach for them. But that can only happen when you allow that space, when you trust that your presence, when given fully, is enough to leave a mark. This is where many people go wrong. They confuse constant interaction with deep connection, but they're not the same. You can be in someone's life every day and still not make them feel anything. And you can see someone once a week, and every time they leave, you feel like you're carrying their energy with you. It's the quality of your presence that matters, not the quantity. When you live like this, you also start to feel more peaceful within yourself. You're no longer anxiously waiting for someone to text you back, or checking your phone every 5 minutes, or worrying that if you don't reach out today, you'll lose them. You stop trying to manage their perception of you. You trust that the right people will feel your energy and want to stay close. And if they don't, that's information, not failure. You don't have to be everything, all the time. You just have to be something real, consistently. When you're with someone, be all there, say what you mean. Listen like it matters, laugh like you mean it, and then go back to living your life. That rhythm, that dance between presence and space, is what creates desire. It's what makes someone say, I don't always have her, but when I do, I feel her. Let your presence be something that feels good, not overwhelming. Let it energize, not drain. Let it be a gift, not the habit. The more intentional you are with it, the more powerful it becomes. And over time, you'll find that people start seeking your presence, not because you're always available, but because when you're there, you're unforgettable. When you stop chasing and start being, everything changes. You begin to carry yourself with quiet confidence, knowing that your presence, your energy, your truth are enough. You no longer need to prove your worth. You embody it. You show up with depth, spark emotion, and create space for someone to miss you. You speak with honesty, live with intention, and allow your authenticity to lead the connection. And that's what makes you unforgettable. Because the person who knows their value, owns their space, and dares to be real, that's the person others crave, not for a moment, but over and over again.